Let's take a closer look at why Red Bull was suddenly so strong in Monza and McLaren couldn't keep up. There are multiple factors and they all came together. The McLaren is a car which is designed to be fast on every track so it can win the championship. That means that the concept needs to be a compromise between high, medium and low downforce tracks, with high downforce tracks being the majority of the calendar. So the McLaren is good on tracks which require more downforce with medium speed corners. And that is not ideal for Monza, a track with long straights, low downforce and high-speed corners. You might ask now, why not every team is designing their car to be good on every track? But the truth is that top-level race car design is so complex that most teams don't understand their car well enough to design it for a certain type of track. Most teams design the car in their own way, then experience how it performs on track and then develop it in a certain direction. So we see F1 cars with different characteristics and it depends on your experience and tools to change that. Red Bull was struggling so far with their tricky car characteristics, but they have a car which performs well in high-speed corners, which is good for Monza with high-speed corners which lead to long straights. The McLaren has the advantage of its superior tyre management, but this only is an advantage if the track creates high tyre degradation and only if all other teams are struggling. The Monza track was resurfaced last year. This year the surface is not as aggressive anymore and tyre degradation is low. So McLaren's tyre management advantage here is less. And then lots of things changed within Red Bull. First of all, Red Bull is still developing their car like crazy and also in Monza they had updates for floor and front wing. The car is better to drive now. On the other hand, since Adrian Newey left, their new technical director Pierre Vacher was focused on peak downforce instead of drivability. He said it's his job to deliver a car with as much downforce as possible, and it's the job of the race engineers to make the best out of it at the track. So everything was purely data-driven and simulator was king. They worked out a setup in the simulator based on their data, and that's the setup they started with on Friday. And as we know, Red Bull was often struggling in all practice sessions and then quickly turned the car around for quali, which sometimes worked and sometimes not. Which actually shows you how skilled their race engineers are. And on top of that, in the past, Red Bull traditionally drove with less power on Friday to not show their real pace to the competition. They then calculated how fast they could have been. The problem was just that if you don't drive that fast on Friday, many effects and problems don't occur. And especially if you're struggling with your car, this additional complexity doesn't help. Now things are different within Red Bull. The internal power struggle, which lasted 1.5 years, is over now. Team boss Christian Horner, a former race driver who only worked for Red Bull in F1 and a person who focused more on the political side of things, is gone. Together with Adrian Newey, he built an amazing team, but he was no engineer, and his engineering mastermind was gone. New team boss now is Laurent Mekies, a mechanical engineer who works in F1 since 2001 and for a number of different teams and even for the FIA. As an engineer, he's asking the right questions internally and he has seen how other teams operate. He knows what it takes and that you should listen to the drivers more because only if they feel comfortable in the car, they can extract the most. So Red Bull is not only data-driven now. They use experiences and driver feedback for their Friday setup, and we could see that they are struggling less with their base setup. So it's a better start into the weekend and an easier way to find the best setup. Good indicator here is the performance of the second driver Tsunoda, who could reach Q3. And speaking of drivers, of course another huge factor to success at Red Bull is Verstappen. One of the best F1 drivers who does racing all his life and even in his free time, so he can compensate car problems and read the race like not many others can. Additionally, for the setup in Monza, Verstappen decided to go with less downforce to be less vulnerable on the straights, and in the corners he would manage somehow to keep the others behind. And this worked. So we could see better performances of Red Bull as a team in the following races, although we have to say that the mentioned circumstances played in their favor and it might not work out as nicely on other tracks. But Red Bull seems to have a much better atmosphere internally now, and they changed procedures for a more efficient weekend and better results. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below and check out my other videos for more. See you at the next video.